Kamal, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the show. It is such an honor to have you on here.
I'm so excited. Like I said, this is something I've been looking forward to. I love your work. I love to talk about the work. So
Mhm.
being here really is a dream. So I'm excited and ready to roll. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you. So, when I first saw Kamal's work, I was just really blown away by it. You have such incredible photography that pulls the viewer in where I feel like I am part of what's happening. I'm
Mm,
able to have a glimpse into like a moment. Like I'm looking at this piece right now where there's a mirror that is reflecting someone that has a sign that they're holding up. And then there's this woman
mhm.
with her like Louis Vuitton bag looking at her cell phone.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so just these like moments that you capture in time. So before we dive into all the amazing things that you're doing right now and the photography and so much more that we're going to be talking about, can you just take us back and share with us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you originally really came into the arts?
Hey, so thank you again for that amazing intro. Really, I appreciate that. But I'm Kamal X. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. For me, the camera was a late bloom, if you want to say, like, but the truth was, even though I picked up the camera late, I always found media, movies, publications of that nature, magazines and newspapers. These are things that I always kind of paid attention to. And even growing up with my stepdad, he was really big on like going to the movies. So, and that was
Mhm.
like my way out. That was my way coming from North New Jersey. We didn't travel a lot. We didn't go out the country or anything like that. That seemed like a distant fantasy of anything. So going to the movies was my passport, and it opened up a new world. And I remember being young, just always thinking to myself, one day I'll be able to fly. One day I'll be able to explore my curiosities and see how this big world that I know exists, because I see it in books, I see it in movies, but I don't necessarily see it in the physical form yet. So a lot of my growing up has just always been about curiosity, trying to figure things out for myself. And like, I think that's another reason why the camera, I kind of like self-taught myself to do it. Started about 8 years ago. Um, and it was started through a journey that I did. I unfortunately lost my best friend to colon cancer about 10 years ago. All
Loss.
love. And I always talk about him whenever I do interviews because he's really the root of a lot of what I do. And about 10 years ago, when he transitioned, I remember I decided to just drop everything and travel the world. And as I was traveling the world, finding myself, finding peace, healing, dealing with the rage and anger and grief, I picked up the camera about halfway through that journey. So it kind of like it took that experience to help me kind of find a new outlet, and that outlet became a great way for my voice, for my healing. And I think that's a big reason why you may feel that way about some of my photography. It's like I take it very personally, and it's a very emotional experience for me. I'm always searching for emotion and things that convey things that I've felt or
Yeah.
experienced. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love how you're starting with this place of I grew up in a place where I wasn't able to travel a lot either, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the ability to see a place or read about a place and knowing, I think this was the key, is something you said. You're like, I know I'm going to end up doing this and seeing these places and making this happen. And then here you are traveling the world. And I'm so sorry that you had that loss that brought you to that point. But I love how you're treasuring his memory and who he is and was and what
Mhm.
he brought and the emotion that you're able to put into these photographs that you are creating. So around 8 years ago, you pick up a camera. So happy you did.
Thank you. Thank you.
um, can you tell us, like, take us back to this journey? You are dealing with this loss, this grief,
Mhm.
overwhelm. And where
Yeah.
was the first place that you went? And what did that kind of look like as you began to explore?
It started in Southeast Asia, right? So my
Wow.
best friend Drew, this his name's Andrew. He loved that I was a freedom person. To him,
Mhm.
I was like, and he was claustrophobic. So for me getting on planes and going, like, I lived in different cities at that point, he was like, yo, man, that's the most amazing thing. I can't imagine doing that. So In his memory, I decided to like push it to the next level and go backpacking across the country. Like I didn't know it was going to become traveling the world. I
Yeah.
just was like, let me see what this backpacking thing is. And it actually, like, it wasn't even a natural thing at first. It was very difficult dealing with different cultures, being like just adjusting. And I remember like the first time when I got to Thailand, which was the first location, I met these other backpackers and they were like, your bag is way too full, man. You got way too much stuff in your bag, man. And I was like, I had all these sneakers and like regular nice fashion clothes, not like travel clothes. I didn't even know what that was yet. And they're like, honestly, bro, you're about to be out here for 40 days, man. You should get rid of about 60% of it. I was like, what? Like, this is like clothes I spend money on. And it's
Yeah.
like, how are you going to keep traveling and go to all these great places and buy new things? And I was like, wow. So like the first day I literally gave away 60% of everything that I had. And I just left it for like the staff to just take and do whatever they wanted with. And I think that was like a huge lesson for just the entire journey because it wasn't easy. I had to let go of a lot of my ideas of what I thought it was supposed to be like, parts of my identity. Even at that time, I had to let go of the whole life coach. I'm a trainer. Like I had to just become Kamal again. And that journey kind of started out like that. But as I kind of gained traction or kept like finding new parts about myself that I really appreciated, like it was like, oh wow, it became like addictive because it was like, I've never experienced anything like this before. This is crazy. I can't explain it to anyone, but I know each place that I go, each person I meet, it's just doing something for me. And to get to the point where I bought the camera, which, after that first 40-day trip, I fell in love with travel. So at that point, it's save money, keep going, save money, keep going. And I got to a point where I did a big trip where I did it was 5 months through South and Central America. And
Mm.
I wanted to do the whole thing. I was like, I want to really go for it. I don't want any training wheels anymore. I'm going for it. And that's when I brought my first camera, which was in Ecuador, which was like, I think about a month, maybe a month and a half, 2 months in. And I just kept seeing all these travelers that have real cameras, and I had this iPhone. And I was like, okay, it's time to switch it up, man. Once I saw how good those other photos were versus what the iPhone can do, I was like, oh no. That's how it just started naturally like that, and just getting better and better and trying to figure it out. Just trying to figure it out. It just became something that like a puzzle, then became like a purpose. Yeah.
Mm, I love that. A puzzle becomes a purpose. It also makes me think about, when you were starting out, this idea of you can't take it with you. That's like what
Mm,
just kept coming into my head. You can't take it with you.
yeah.
What is this life that we have that
Mm,
doesn't last forever? What are we going to do with it? We can't take any of this beyond. So going into this creative expression that you really picked up, it sounds like probably the whole time in your whole life, but really started putting it out there when you hit Ecuador. You
mm,
get to leave that behind for people. I don't know. It's
yeah.
like so beautiful to think about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a moment that I never would think. Sometimes things happen, you don't see how symbolic it is, so you're like out of it. And I just was writing about it. I was like, man, that was a crazy first day. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna make movies, but to me, that was very cinematic, like how that all kind of came across. And it's a big part of who I am today. Just knowing the importance of having to let go, what to bring with you, and
Mhm.
how that relates to what you create. Because you know you really do. One thing I do love about artistry, for me personally, like, is, and I'm continuing to learn this all the time, but you really have to put your all into it.
Mhm.
Like, you can't shortcut it. You can't, like, when it comes to who you are and what you're trying to express, like, there's no cheat code, there's no
Mhm.
shortcuts. You have to really be willing to give yourself. And for me to get to that point, I had to let go of things that were just in the way, things that were, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, fear of going outside the box and not being a traditional artist in terms of going to school for it. And I'm just like, I'm an outsider, so I had to let go of a lot of preconceived notions to really fall into my artistry.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I love what you're talking about here in terms of letting go of fear, like you were saying, fear
Hmm.
of judgment, fear of like, well, I don't have this background, so can I
Hmm.
go into this? And this is something I talk to artists about a lot. Even artists who have like gone to art school and stuff have this fear that they're not good enough or worthy enough or
Yeah.
whatever it may be. Do you have anything you could share with our listeners in ways that worked for you to kind of let go of that fear, maybe thoughts that you had, practices that you put into place?
Mm. I'll say this, and there's a few of them, but this one
Mhm.
really like I feel deeply about this one. Like when just like I said earlier, like you have to really put your all into it. I find that once you really let go and surprise yourself by being so intentional, being so disciplined and like really going after what you're trying to do. And that means like getting better, finding people to ask questions to, taking classes, taking courses, like studying the craft of which you're trying to get into and being a student. And when I did that and just like put my heart and all that I could, it was like the feeling of like being not feeling like I'm not good enough kind of goes away because you're doing the work. You
Mm.
know how much you put into this. You know that this is so well thought out. This wasn't just a trick shot that went in. This is like, no, I took some step back. I done learned from people. I made mistakes. That's the whole student process, like trying new
Mhm.
things. And no, I'm in my zone now. Like I'm in my voice. I'm creating who I am. And maybe that might be the thing that people need to pay attention to. Maybe you're not in your voice yet. Maybe you're still figuring it out. And within that, give yourself grace, but understand like there
Mhm.
is a destination. There is a point where like you start to feel more rooted in your work and like, I don't care what y'all say. I love this. Like, I love this. And I care so much about this that for me personally, this is each artist has their own prerogative on this one, but I want the world to see it.
Mhm.
It means that much to me. So sometimes I think it's the relationship you actually have with what you're doing and you being clear of conscience in terms of knowing you really are doing the work and you're not cheating yourself. It's like,
Mm.
those they always say, like, you're only cheating yourself, but they say that when you're working out, but you don't want to hear that because it's like, I don't care, man. I don't I'm gonna rest, but like when it comes to your actual purpose or something that you care about or your craft or your skill set, I mean, it's real. You are cheating yourself, so really do the
Yeah.
work, I think. Yeah.
I love that. Something that always goes through my head when I'm like trying to really push a painting is leave it on the floor, like leave it on the floor, leave it on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, what more can you do? And I feel like that is exactly what you're saying is you're only cheating yourself when
Hmm.
you don't leave it all out there. But I also love what you said about, when you're still in a student phase, which we
Hmm.
all have been there, or
Right.
some people may be there, giving yourself grace because,
Hmm.
we all have our own experiences, life, personality that shapes our work. And some people find their voice or what they're doing sooner than others. And that doesn't make it right or wrong. You may need a
Hmm.
couple more experiences, or that person had them at this moment in their life.
Hmm.
Um, so I really enjoyed what you were saying there. And I love that you have gone through this process, pushed yourself, have a voice, want the world to see it. And now you have this incredible book that you just released, Black Astronaut, The Stars Belong to the People.
Hmm.
Wow. Like, what a
Oh.
journey,
Oh man,
started
thank you so
out
much. You're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me cry, okay? Like this is
like
thank you so much. Oh man.
Whoa, man. No, it's like so amazing. So just can you share with us a little bit about this book? And did you have dreams of making a book when you first picked up a camera, or when did that kind of come
Oh,
about?
never been asked that question before. No, I
Yeah.
never thought. I never. Nope. I will say this though. I did think that at one point I did want to write a book. Like I would write books before, like work on those. But I never thought. I thought it would be writing. I didn't think. This is before I even picked up a camera. So when it all kind of came full circle in a different way, I was like, this is crazy. So, um, so even with like so Black Astronaut, how that kind of came apart around because as you know, like 2020,
Uh,
George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, the presidential situation, the vaccine
yeah,
situation, the women's rights issues, like these all the things that kind of happened within the last since 2020 to 2023, still going on still.
yeah.
Um, but when George Floyd happened, and I remember seeing the video, and obviously, like all of us, we were just like, no words can explain what that felt like. I remember naturally felt this real deep urge to like make sure I did something about it. And I knew because I was a photographer, I had a rare opportunity that I feel like anybody, I'm sure all of us wanted to do something, but it's like a lot of times it's like, what can you do? But give your
Mhm,
support, maybe money, or just try
mhm.
to be a better person. But I knew I had a tool, a camera, which has been shown to be always a tool for change, for giving voice to the voiceless. And I felt like it was my time to really step up. I didn't know it would become a book, but I did know I wanted to take photos that were a representation of how I saw the world, because I saw a lot of photos that were on CNN and other newslet outlets and Instagram, and I didn't see the love behind the rage, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. I saw a lot of like fire and brimstone and anger, 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 and I'm like, okay, I do understand that, but I have a feeling there's more to this. I have a feeling that you're not really understanding the voices outside. And me being a Black man, I was like, I want to put my spin on it, so to speak. And similar to, my story about traveling the world, it started with one trip and then it like went to, and I made a book out of that one. That was my first book, Quest Supreme. Um,
awesome.
and that came out of like nowhere. I didn't see it coming. Similar with this one, it was like I went out and I was living in Oakland, California at the time. I started shooting and I immediately felt like, oh, this is important. This
Mhm.
is this is different. Like this, the pictures I was taking is photos I never taken photos of at that magnitude in my life before. And I guess so much was on the line, feeling like you're risking your life, whether it be from the air in terms of COVID, the police situation, other crazy things happening, civil discourse and all that stuff. So I really felt like in a lot of ways I had to make the choice, like, you can die doing this. Is it
Yeah.
that important? And I said yes. So I came up with the concept Black Astronaut because I felt like when I left my apartment, I felt like the America I thought I knew disappeared and I was in a new planet. I felt like the air in terms of COVID was something that was like, I had to protect myself. So I'm wearing masks, gloves, all types of protective gear. I'm like, am I an astronaut? So that's kind of where, and you look at an astronaut is someone that goes into environments and is on a mission to discover things. Oftentimes the environment is hazardous to them, that's why they need the suit. That's what I felt like I was the experience of being in America at that time was. So yeah, that kind of grew into more and more pictures that went into 120 weeks of shooting, 13 cities, 9 states,
Whoa.
getting on planes before we knew what COVID really was yet, staying in hotels, which was crazy. um it took, again, like we said earlier, it took all of me, and I realized the assignment and I went for it, and it evolved into this project that we're celebrating today. Black Astronaut, the stars belong to the people. Yep.
Oh, oh my gosh. Like I mean, I knew this was an involved project, but I didn't realize you were in that many places at that time.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, here it's COVID. There was so much, like you said, rage,
Mm-hmm.
and being, a black man going into these spaces. I mean, there was a lot of violence. So like putting yourself
Yes.
on the front lines, I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Um, Now, in Black Astronaut, do you write about your experience as well, or is it just images?
There is written, but there is some written. There's two major essays. There's
Mhm.
one that has more to do with forgiveness and something that a personal
Mm,
part of my journey that I share. That's a very vulnerable reality for me that I think ties in really well to the story and what my reason for going outside and doing that. And then there is a part where I really explain, leaving Oakland, the feelings of going outside and the fear of death. And yeah, there is writing in there for sure. Mm-hmm.
that sounds incredible. And
Oh,
so,
thank you so
having
much.
the voice there with it. Can you give us just a little bit in terms of some of the images we would see in there, or maybe a really memorable moment in one of the cities where you capture an image that still sits with you?
Well, there's six chapters in the book, and
Mhm.
I mean, they all have their own voice, and they're all just as important. But there's one in particular that really resonates with me, and it's Gravity.
Mhm.
Gravity's chapter is, again, it's about the other side of the rage. It's about the sadness that's really occurred. And at that time, Dante Wright, who was murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota, she pulled out her taser. She thought she pulled out a taser, but it was a gun, and she killed the kid. And I happened to be in Minneapolis when they were having the funeral.
Oh.
So I was there seeing the parents walking into the funeral. In Minneapolis, also, we're at the site where George Floyd actually was murdered, seeing the real people of that place, spending days and nights walking the streets, just getting a real understanding of what's going on. And that chapter goes into just how deep the energy, like the emotion, the grief, the sorrow, like how real it is, and how it's just, there's a rage element, like we said earlier, in terms of what was going on outside and the protesting, but then there's another side of the actual sorrow. And it's a tough chapter to get through, but it's so important, I think, to the whole story, and giving a voice to something that I think oftentimes we may shy away from, or we don't want to deal with directly, especially as it relates to this particular moment in American history. So
Mhm.
there's images that go into exactly in front of that store where it happened to George Floyd. It's things of a funeral. There's things in there that have to do a lot with spirituality, I would say. Just opening your mind, nature. There's things that I really kind of, I leaned into that one a lot emotionally, I felt like. So yeah, I'm really curious to also see people's reaction to that, because a few people that have seen the book, that's one that stands out to them too. The Gravity chapter seems to be very impactful. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, you had mentioned earlier that you had seen images, from like CNN or on Instagram, and they just didn't come from like this perspective. You're talking about like love behind the rage.
Mm-hmm.
And from the images that I've seen and from what you're describing in this chapter of Gravity,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like that is where you're able to kind of clinch it in your visual imagery and work that you've created, which is it's so layered,
Mm.
like it's not
Yeah.
just like a bam, done, look at this.
Yeah.
There's like that level of spirituality, grief, like how layered is
Mm-hmm.
a grief, right?
Yeah.
And vulnerability, and just also being in a space where you can allow people to have that tangibility of emotion you're talking about, because so many other images are just like kind of like you don't actually get the feeling behind it, and
Mm-hmm.
people want to avoid, like you say, like they want to
Mm-hmm.
avoid a lot of this stuff because it's uncomfortable, and that's not helping anybody. And so I feel
Right.
like your photos are like really like adding that element of being able to have the emotion behind it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an important part of my process and work, mainly because it's the thing that's helped me the most find peace in my life. Like, you grow up and you're taught to like not deal with certain emotions, or you don't know how to. So you just like you don't know, even if you want to get it out, anger is normally the most natural way, because you haven't built, your ability, emotional intelligence enough to be able to get that things out in a different way. So as I figured that out for myself and found writing, talking, therapy, just sitting with emotions and letting myself shift my perspective on things too, because that's a big thing. Knowing just because I see it one way doesn't mean that's the reality. Like, and it's taking a step back. All those things are exactly what I put into my work. It's like, and one thing I also know is I do not like to be judged. I do not like to be put in anyone's box. I have I am who I am, and that comes with a lot of peaks and valleys, you know. And I think I try to give that same grace and respect to the subjects I shoot too, to know like I can't go in there just thinking this is what it is and I want to take this photo and this is what I'm looking for. It's like, no, take time, relax, see what you see. Like, even if I don't agree with what someone's saying, it's like, no, like this person deserves just as much respect as you want, you know. So I think that's another route that I use that helps me kind of get into that honest, and it becomes more layered because it's honesty. It's not being judgmental. It's like letting what's in front of me be exactly what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful and beautiful, to
Thank you.
hear and to have in an image. Um, is there anything right now that you're working on or thinking about working on?
Well, everything is 100% Black astronaut, to be honest.
Yep.
But there's a little bit of me that's like been working on a new project, but it's more like mental visualization and writing. Like this is one thing that I've
Mm,
learned is I like to write things out and visualize. I even like will put out like little drawings of images that I think I'm want to create. It helps
mm,
me like mentally, like it's like if I could see it in my mind first, I find that I get better results when I'm actually in the field. For me personally, you
yeah.
know, if I just go and I'm just shooting away, and sometimes I get lucky, don't get me wrong, but like a lot of times I find like if I know what I'm looking for, if I know what kind of energy it's a blanket though. It's not like that direct, but it's enough to give
Yeah.
me a guideline. So I've been working on that, and it has to do something with, I can give you this much. It has to do
Yeah.
with two different countries, and just, you know, comparing them in a particular way that from my experience with them, they might seem separate, but they really have so much in common. So
Yeah.
I gave a lot already, but yeah, it's something that you know,
Oh
I'm really
man.
looking forward to creating and seeing where we go with that one. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we'll look out for that one in the future. But right
Yeah, well,
now,
yeah.
everybody, check out Black Astronaut. I mean, this is just an incredible book that I think really, really does talk about the times.
Yeah. Oh, the
It
times. Oh, I'm so happy you said that. Prince is my favorite artist of all time. He has a
yes.
song called Sign of the Times. That was
Yes.
amazing. Right on time. Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Oh man. Also, I have to give a big shout out to Stacy Muhammad if you're listening to this, because she's the biggest Prince fan I know. And
Oh,
she's gonna be like
awesome.
literally have
Stacy.
doing like
You
a
know what
big
it
like
is. Purple
yes,
people.
yes,
You know what it
yes.
is.
Oh man. Well, Kamal, this has been such a pleasure to talk to you about your work and to talk to you about Black Astronaut. So I want to thank you for being on here and sharing your work.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a great conversation. I'm so happy I can connect with you and your listeners. And, you know, I always say this, but we are in this together. So any support goes a long way, you know, like
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
just believing in the dream and just pushing one step at a time. And anything is possible when we just band together in powerful ways. So sharing this
It's so
moment is
true.
everything. Sharing
So
this
true.
moment is everything. And I'm grateful and just thank you. I don't know what else to say. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, Kamal. Seriously, this has been so great. And you guys, you can find Black Astronaut in the links in the show notes. And also,
Mhm.
Kamal, where can we find you online so we can follow along with your work
The
more?
best is Instagram. So I am Kamal X. So I am Kamal X. And then my website is simple too. I am kamalx.com.
Great.
All links that you need are there for you. Amazon is where you can buy the book, Kamal X, Black Astronaut. It's a big yellow X on the cover, so you will know it when you see it. But yeah, just connect with me. Any questions, any artists that want to talk or share ideas or guidance, or if you got pointers for me, even like let's go. Like I'm all open and I want to connect. Yeah.
I love it. I'm all about community. So this is like perfect. So you guys feel free to reach out to Kamal, check out the links that we'll be sharing in the show notes and over on Instagram. We'll be sharing his work. And yeah, definitely check out Black Astronaut. So thank you again, Kamal, and I hope you have a great day and keep in contact. I want to know
I
about
will
the
for
next book
sure.
too.
Oh yeah, we'll keep talking for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.